A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. We are going to be speaking to an array of international guests who will share their knowledge and experiences of homeopathy with you. We will discuss all types of subjects such as remedies, symptoms, and stories of health. No matter where you are with your homeopathic journey, we aim to inspire you on your quest to natural health and living. The podcast is brought to you by Greensmith, the founder of Homeopathy 24/7, which is a global platform connecting you with a homeopath wherever you are in the world, 24 hours a day. So let's get started with today's chat. Please welcome Mary Greensmith.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. It's so lovely to see you, and I'm so happy to be able to welcome Leslie Anderson, who's come to talk to us and just tell us a bit about her journey. So welcome, Leslie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show. I started off when I was having children, and I have three wonderful, beautiful children. And we basically started going to the doctor, and we started doing our procedures at the doctor. The medications that were provided were making my kids a little bit sicker every day. And so I challenged the doctor in that. And I said, I don't really think that a lot of what you're giving, whether it's an injection or a pill or a cream, whether these things are helping my child. It seems like they're getting more and more sick. And we would start with just a fever, and then maybe it would be a rash, and then maybe it would be something else like a gut issue. We ended up doing multiple courses of antibiotics. We did a lot of Tylenol at that time. We did a lot of steroid creams, and the medications weren't helping. And so we just sort of ended up going down a really terrible path. Most people don't really recognize that a fever or a rash or an ear infection is part of what we were seeing as the damage that was happening. But I didn't at the time either. I really just followed along suit. And so I was very trusting at the time. And so I ended up, doing the same route as a lot of other people, and ended up with the same results as a lot of other people. And so somewhere in the mix, when my oldest child was about 5 years old, it was bad enough that I said, we've got to do something different. And I started looking at natural health. I started looking at supplements, and I looked at all kinds of things, actually. I went to a naturopathic doctor. I went to a functional medicine doctor. And most of the people at the time so for us, we were starting to head down towards a path of autism.
Okay.
And so we looked at the DAN, which was Defeat Autism Now doctors. And so the DAN doctors had a protocol of healing the gut, healing the immune system, and then healing the brain, and that everything really was connected. And that I really identified with that, because I didn't feel like chopping the body up in a whole bunch of different pieces was working. So you couldn't just go to the dermatologist for your skin problem and then go to the rheumatologist, for your allergy, or your ENT doctor for your allergy, and go to the psychologist for anything there. So I really just felt like all of this was connected. I knew it was connected. I just didn't know how to fix it at that time. And so I started reading a lot of books, and my stack of books is generally pretty high. I love reading. I love researching. And I'm so glad that I did, because I felt like because of my passion and determination to help my child, I've learned so much. So that was the beginning of the path of what a lot of people have come into this world from damage or some kind of a pain or some kind of distress. And then they just choose to research and make a different choice.
It's amazing, isn't it, how we are led down one way, a one-way path effectively, and there are other choices, but it's not so easily available. And it's only for those that can really delve in and really do that research that actually find that there are alternatives. There are other ways to keep healthy, to stay healthy, and to improve health.
Yeah, so I came from a background of chemical engineering.
Okay.
And so I felt like when I went to college, I wanted to have a skill that nobody else could do and nobody else could, it was a secure degree because it was a hard degree. And you couldn't replace me with a computer. You couldn't replace me with, it was something that was hard and difficult. That was a strange thing to do at that time. But I think I was challenged by my father, who was an accountant, and he always said that was like the top of the food chain is engineering. And so I said, oh, I can do that. And so I did it. So I have this chemical engineering degree, and I learned a lot of like the high level math, and I learned a lot of the high level science. And I also worked in manufacturing, where we dealt with health and safety. So, between OSHA and the EPA, we sold products that were agricultural chemicals. And I realized that some of our products were actually cancer causing. They'd have to be labeled as causing cancer, especially in California. And again, I questioned that, and I said, wait a minute, like if it's only causing cancer in California, what's it doing to the other 49 states? Yeah. So we've got to, I started, eating organic, and I just started taking a path to like healthy diet and less chemicals in my life in general, right? Washing with lemon, and just doing things a little bit healthier and more organic and more natural. And then, of course, after the birth of my children, that's when I told you about some of the other issues that we were having. And so, I've looked at a lot of natural therapies in my life, and I've looked at things like, intravenous vitamin C, and injectable glutathione, and methylene blue, methyl B12 shots. Looked at, special diets from gluten-free and dairy-free, GAPS diets, high meat diets, low meat diets, low carb diets. I've looked at a lot of different things. We did clean up our diet many years ago. And I think my journey starts about 20 years ago with the birth of my oldest child. And so after cleaning up our diet, we still had issues. And I thought this is just a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. We've got to figure this out. So I started down the road of the supplements. And the doctor that was my doctor, he's actually a really good integrative doctor in North Carolina, where I lived at the time. They really, helped us with some of the more complex things, like even chelation. And so we did a lot of that. And I think it really did help one of my children. But one of my other children is the one that had a more complex diagnosis, to be honest. And really, even my first and my children actually didn't have any per se diagnoses until just recently. And so when I was introduced to PANDAS, I realized that a lot of the symptoms that we were seeing actually was underneath that umbrella. And so I just started putting all my effort into trying to figure out PANS and PANDAS. And I realized that if you look out on the internet, PANDAS is caused by an autoimmune reaction to strep. Yeah. And PANDAS is pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with strep. And there's also another more general version that is PANS, and that's pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome. And those are the ones that are triggered by Lyme disease, by mold, by herpes virus, anything that could cause encephalitis that would not be strep. So anything else. And so it was more of an umbrella term. But if you look at both of those two together, there must have been some immune system dysfunction prior to the onslaught of the other pathogens. And so I couldn't get where I needed to get using some of the more alternative means. So we used diet, and we used, IVs, and we used, all of the things I just mentioned. And I realized that there was a lot of killing therapies in there, antibiotics, for example. And I realized that some of the things that we were doing was just boosting the immune system with vitamins or killing the pathogens. And it was focused on either killing or boosting, but it was never focused on resetting. Yeah. And so this is where homeopathy comes in, is that I realized that it was the predisposition to disease. Because if I lived in a home that may have had a musty smell, I was not even going to have allergies, because my levels of health were a lot higher than my child, who was suffering with a whole lot of issues, whether it was allergies or sinus issues or rashes or any of these other things that we talked about. So I realized at that time, I'm like, there's something to my body's ability to fight off the thing that I'm exposed to. in nature that my child is not. And so I really wanted to focus. Then everything changed, and I realized that, I needed to focus on her level of health.
It's really so interesting, Leslie, just talking to you as a scientist. Just with your level of you really want to go in and get into the depth of everything and understand everything. And when it comes to homeopathy and some other natural health protocols and methodologies, then people are saying, well, it's not proven, it's not got this, it's not got the other. But actually, with your mindset and your ability to research, you realize that actually it has got an awful lot of history and proven results that are indicating to address the cause of an issue is so much more important than actually just looking at the symptom and trying to get rid of the symptom itself.
Yeah. So I come at it from obviously an engineering background and a scientific background, and everything is data driven, and it's you want to have, data and results and evidence. And so I love to find studies on either the NIH website or the NHS, or, I love to find studies where it shows that a homeopathy remedy treated some kind of disease, and that it's proven, and that was scientifically done with, it might be retrospective, or it might be, some small studies. So there's not as much out there as you would like, of course, but I do like finding those studies. And I found that there's actually a lot out there. There's even some in the more recent problem that we had during like the COVID era. There's even studies out there. Of course, they're not done in the UK and they're not done in the US, but I found a study that was done in Austria, and it was pretty eye-opening about, how they handled their situation in the past couple of years. So, there is evidence. You have to pick through, and you have to sort of sort through it. And, so I think it's out there. And there's a lot of different kinds of homeopathy. There's the, Banerjee protocols, and they seem to be doing a lot with evidence. And then there's classical, of course, and George Vitulkas is doing a whole study on the, quantum mechanics and quantum physics behind homeopathy. Yes. And then there's others too that are running, their own studies and their own, I guess you could say, data. They're running their own data, even if it's not a formal study.
Well, the problem, of course, with homeopathy, it's just like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, isn't it? The way studies are formed by mainstream medicine and pharmaceuticals doesn't fit what homeopathy is trying to do by, as you said before, that holistic approach. We're not split into lots of different parts. We are all one and need to be looked at it in that way. Tell me a little bit about fighting for medical choice and freedom.
Yeah, so this is something I've been involved in a whole lot more than I've been involved in homeopathy. For probably about 20 years, I've worked with people and spoken with people who've been affected by some kind of pharmaceutical product, and they've had some kind of adverse event, and maybe their child's health started deteriorating. And I've been surrounded by these folks at autism health conferences and small town meetings. I've met some of the most, brilliant people like Del Bigtree and Andrew Wakefield and David Kirby and some people like that who've written books and created movies and podcasts and all sorts of momentum behind this movement. But for me, number one, I feel the need to show up. And I feel the need to show up in person. It's a whole lot different than just a little post on Facebook that nobody's ever going to see. And so what I've done in the past is I've gone to conferences, I've spoken at events, and I've done a really good job of trying to connect people. And so even during the COVID time, that was a time for me of, we have got to let people know we can't just be passive anymore. So we've got to let people know what is going on, and it will fall on some ears that will not hear, and it will fall on some ears that will hear, and those will be the ones that will benefit from the information that we're giving out. And I don't really worry too much about somebody that disagrees with me, because I just know that it's my job to educate. And so it doesn't matter what the mainstream medicine thinks. It really doesn't. It just matters what the person in front of you thinks, and they need answers, and they need help. And so I've tried to focus on a little bit of what is my mission in the world and what is my passion, and trying to just meet, to be honest, what God has put me on this earth to do. And so in that respect, it's an easy path, because you show up and you speak out and you fight for medical freedom, and it's very important to do that in this world right now, especially. And so in the most recent cases, like years ago, I'll tell you, years ago, I actually spoke to the Attorney General in North Carolina, and I gave a little bit of a presentation along with a friend of mine on the fact that the VAERS system that receives all of the adverse event information in America was not accurate, because the submissions that people were putting into VAERS, some of them were missing. And so we took that to the Attorney General and said, this is a real problem, because if we don't have good data, how are we going to know how many people this is affecting or harming? Mm-hmm. And so we went and we spoke, and it was one of those things I just had to do. I knew that it probably wouldn't make much difference, but I did it anyway, because it's important to just show up again. And so then in more recent years, there's a big movement right now. There is a massive movement. A lot of people are still afraid to do anything about it, but there is a massive movement to look at an alternative medicine in this world for everything. Whether you're dealing with cancer, or whether you're dealing with PANDAS or autism, or whether you're dealing with diabetes, or no matter what it is, like I feel like people are tired of the same old answer that might, in this case, give them only 6 months more to live, and that's it. If you choose radiation or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I think right now this is something that I could never have done. I could never have fought for medical freedom, by myself, little old me. But the fact that right now in this world that we have got so many people, there's eyes on it everywhere. And unfortunately, it's because it had to happen to you. The problems had to happen to you. And so now there's a lot of people questioning everything. And so it makes our job a whole lot easier, because we don't have to get up there and just beat against a wall. We can just say, come join us, Yeah. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me. Unfortunately for me also is that in this world, when we're dealing with children that have autism and PANS and PANDAS, parents are busy, they're exhausted, they're worn out, and they're tired. And so to say, well, you also should come and join our meeting, you should come and speak out, that's a really hard thing to do. And so I don't know why, but I have the energy, and I have the persistence, and I have the resilience to just go and do that. And so I feel like that's my part in this world that I can play in the world, is that I can go ahead and go and speak up for people who can't leave their child at this moment, or I can go speak up for them if they don't have the resources to have someone watch their child or whatever. And so, we're in a pretty good place. And I would say, thanks to a few of my favorite homeopaths, Lizzie Martinez and Rin Lloyd are top of my list, of course, because they've changed my life in an amazing way. And Rin Lloyd, especially with the project that we're doing right now. So I feel like if I can speak out on a podcast, and I can get information out there into the comfort of their homes, or maybe they're at the gym or wherever it is that they listen to their podcast, I feel like that's an easy, low pressure situation for someone to listen to another opinion. And we've got to gather all the opinions together in order to do that. So I do feel like that's my role in this, is to go ahead and speak out whenever I can, and just keep taking that one more step.
It's just amazing. It's just such a brilliant way, as you said, and we're so lucky to be in this day and age where we can reach people that want to listen. We don't have to do this alone. There is a large group of people coming together, and more. So is there somewhere, obviously we need to be pointing people to your new podcast, which is called?
The Homeopathy is Changing Lives podcast.
Such a perfect name, and is there somewhere also that they can go and find out more about medical choice and freedom?
Yes, as a matter of fact. And I have a couple different places that you can go. And one of them is I Can Decide. I'm going to get the actual name of it here because I had it up a minute ago.
Okay.
And
And
I'm,
we will put it in a link
yeah,
below so that people can click and find
yeah.
out more.
And I can actually say it here. It's nationalhealthfreedom.org and icandecide.org. And both of those, ICAN actually stands for Informed Consent Action Network. And they are working with legislators, legal updates. They're working with the High Wire, that is Dale Bigtree's program, and how to take action. And then the National Health Freedom Coalition is working for health rights in America. They actually show on their main site that they have a right to refuse 2024 legislative sessions ending with 7 new laws and resolutions. And so originally in January of 2020, there were only 2 states that had laws for the right to refuse. And now in July of 2024, it's more than half of the United States has new bills and resolutions. So we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that has really shows the change, doesn't it? And the fact that
Yeah.
a lot more people have awareness that they have
Yeah.
choice. There is choice and they can fight for choice as well.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah, I do say that's what you got to do is just get out there and meet some people. If I had not met others in the PANDAS network, I would not be where I am today. On
Yeah.
October 9th of last year, I showed up at a PANDAS meeting. It was a meet and greet that I actually helped organize. And the
Okay.
reason I helped organize is that I didn't have answers and I needed to get around other people with answers. And I organized a sign-in sheet, and on that sign-in sheet, I had name, contact, and what treatment is helping you, because selfishly, I needed to know. And 60% of the people in the PANDAS world were using IVIG, which is intravenous immunoglobulin, and 40% were using homeopathy, and several of those that were using homeopathy wrote it with an exclamation point. It got my attention, and because I showed up, and because I was there, and because I was helping out, I was able to see what others were seeing.
That's fantastic. What a fantastic story. And so that really introduced you to the fact that this is something that you need to know more about, and it might obviously be able to help your family personally.
Oh, for sure.
Also, yeah, the world.
Yeah, for sure.
So just in a year, you have had some great results, and now so much so that you're starting a podcast and you're telling other people about it, and you've joined up one of our great homeopaths.
Oh, yes. And I just want to say, I absolutely love Rin Lloyd. I love her as a person and a friend and a mentor, and also just a co-host of the podcast. She is as amazing as she is. Like, if you've ever just had any interactions with her, she's actually just exactly that amazing and more.
Yeah.
And so I love being with her. I love being around her. I told her when I met her that all I wanted to do was I just wanted to be her assistant.
Okay.
Whatever she needed, I wanted to do it because I wanted to learn from her, because she really does have a great handle and she's a great teacher, and she's very encouraging and also patient. And so I just got such a good feeling from her. And then when she said to me that she would like me to join on with her in a project like this, like, it was overwhelming. It was so overwhelming that I think I had to pick my jaw off the ground a couple times because I just couldn't believe it. And it's been everything that I think that I've done in my entire life that's been funneled into just this one project. And so it's a beautiful thing for me. It just feels like it's exactly where I'm supposed to be in this world, in this life right now. And we're having so much fun. I love Rin, and every day we chat in some way or form or another. And it's really going well. We've gotten to interview people like you and see more about what your story is. And we've interviewed some medical doctors, some MDs, and we've also interviewed some homeopaths, and we've also interviewed some moms. And so we've gotten to see a whole lot of different perspectives. As Rin would say, we're straddling the practitioner desk and seeing the sides, both sides, from the practitioner side as well as from the patient and parent side. So it's been an absolute blast.
Absolutely. And you're just going to bring together so much information so that, because I always say that it's the information, you need the information of both sides of the story in order to have a choice. and
Yes.
in order to decide which way to go. But really interesting as well that what you were saying, we were talking about the other day, was that everything that you experience now is going to give you something that you need in the future. And what
Yeah.
you're doing now is a consequence of everything that's gone before.
Yes, yes. And I would say that homeopathy is very simple and elegant, but yet it's also complicated. And so I think sometimes you do need to seek a professional, and you need somebody to help you, because you can do it wrong and then it won't work for you. But if you do it right, it's remarkable. It's like a miracle, and it's remarkable. And so, I'm sure you've had cases that, maybe were struggling for a while and they stuck with it, and then it finally just took off. And those are the cases that I just hope that there are more and more of, because I worry that because it's so accessible and it's so easy to just go buy a tube at, the vitamin shop or on Amazon, that people don't necessarily know how to use it. And that's okay, because it might help somebody anyway. But I also think that it does, if you have a serious health condition and something that's chronic or something that's serious, I think that you should definitely go and see a professional. And that way
Yeah,
you
but
get the most out of it.
even in acute cases, if you are stressed, you are not capable of finding the right remedy. And that's why we have the Homeopathy 24/7 team, because even if you've been using homeopathy all of your life, there are moments when you need professional help. You need somebody to sound this out. You need somebody to see it from an unprecedented, place, so that they can ask the right questions, so that they can find out what's needed. So you're absolutely right. And I would go further and say, whether it's chronic or acute, there are always times that you need to research more, you need to find out more. And the advantage of working with a professional is that they will be coaching you every step of the way, which remedies are most relevant to both you and your family. Because as you said, if you've been in a house with mold, if you've had certain reactions to certain shots, that there are all sorts of things that are affecting your health right now, and you need somebody to go through a whole series of questions just to bring out the information that's relevant for you.
Yeah. And everything is relevant in homeopathy. It seems like.
Isn't
Yes.
it? Isn't
Yes.
it? I love it when people turn around and say, I know I can say this to you, but I can't tell anybody else, because we do ask the most bizarre questions.
Yeah, I love that. And in the time that I've met you, I just met you last week, I believe it was, Mary, right? And in the time that I met you, I've already been able to send 2 or 3 people to Homeopathy 24/7. And it's because things come up and they need it now. And
Yeah.
I love that you have practitioners in every country across the world. So even if it's at 3 a.m. in the United States, there's still somebody over in Australia that can help, or
Yeah.
Europe. And so I love the concept. I love the idea. And it's really, like you say, it's really helpful even in an acute case.
Yeah.
So people don't have to do it alone. And that goes back to the community, is that, we do need community, and people don't need to be doing this alone, whatever their health issue is.
Exactly. And it's just a fantastic opportunity to meet up with like-minded people as well, and learn more about it. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us. It's been an absolute pleasure just to learn about your journey, and everything that you're doing, and of course now, because there is so much that people want to know and will want to join up with you and find out more and get involved. And if we can just get more people involved with fighting for medical choice and freedom, it's just such a wonderful.
Yeah, it is important. And you've really got to be aware of the laws in your state, in the United States. And I'm not sure if it matters in the United Kingdom, if the boroughs or the different, counties or areas, but I do think that in America, we have to know the state law, because it's very different. A state law in Florida and might be very different than one in New York, and that where you live actually really does matter. So in America. We've got some really good laws in Florida. We've got some, other areas to work on in other states, but that's what we're doing.
Well done. Thank you for everything that you do. Just wonderful.
Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it so much.
Take care.
Yeah, bye.
I do hope you've enjoyed these episodes, and I do hope you can subscribe to our channels. Now, there are various ways for you to listen to our podcast or watch it on video on YouTube. So whether it's iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, please do subscribe and please do leave us a review. If you leave us a review on these platforms, then more people will see our podcast. We just want more people to share the joy of homeopathy. It's a choice that everybody should know about. Please do everything you can to help us help more people.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to listening to our next one. Please don't forget to follow our podcast on your chosen channel, and please do leave us a review so we can continue to share homeopathy with as many people as possible. If you do have any questions, please do reach out to us on any of our social platforms mentioned in the show notes. We at Homeopathy 24/7 hope to empower you on your natural health journey.